18 and actively interacting with people within the community, I have heard almost nothing about contracts in a positive light. Anything that I've ever heard talk about with contracts has always been negative. Don't do it. It's not safe. This isn't something that people actually should be doing. What you just described to me sounds a lot less like a contract and more like what we're trying to replace contracts with, which is a kinky treaty. This is just a dynamic-based agreement. There's the understanding that it's not legally binding. There's the understanding that if one person doesn't hold up the end of their deal, the treaty is dissolved.
There's no implications. Yeah.
Exactly. It does. What you described created no situation in which you felt you had to do something you didn't want to or agree to do. And that's the difference, and that's the important part. I think there's nothing wrong with wanting something in writing about an agreement. I think that is completely valid. Because like even for me, like if I thought about sitting down with my partner and us putting our agreements out in writing, not something legally binding, not something we're forced to follow, just we can visually look at and understand what we've talked about, what we've agreed to, and we can change that and amend that at any point of our own free will when we talk about it with one another. The verbiage of the contract itself is the problem.
Yeah, and the key point, to kind of bounce off of that, Sage, too, the key point is that even though, like, that's what we had, because I was in a master slaves dynamic at that time, even when we would go for playtime, there was still, everything was just like you would do now, like what I'm doing now with my partners. Talk about creating the scene. It's not a haphazard conversation. It's thoroughly going through it, detailing specifically what we are and what we aren't going to do. If there's something that we're going to keep on the table, that if it's something that wants to be introduced, that we've discussed and that we're in agreement to, but it's, that can be there. But the key point is that anytime that we were having playtime, it was always renegotiated, negotiated, and always had that same structure of an agreement. And that was separate to the outline of what we had, I guess what you're calling the treaty. The treaty was just outlining, understanding that, there was like that power dynamic, explaining like what that entailed, like what that would entail for me, what that entailed for him, as far as roles. And the key point is roles, not that was identifying me as a person or that was identifying him as a person, but that it was identifying the role playing, that when we hit go on it, that's what we were understanding, that was the realm that it was. So I don't know if that makes a little bit better sense as well.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
I have some questions for you. Did you ever stop and ask why it's called a contract?
I understand with the contract, and understand that I also was in school at the time for legal to become a lawyer and stuff like that. I also understood that it was not legally binding in any ways. He actually had a lawyer as well, and that was something that I think it's important. And a lot has changed since then too. Like this was the early 2000s, so it's very different than what it is now. So as far as, yes, the contract, it wasn't, for me, it was like saying, yes, this is what I'm doing, this is what he's doing. And that it was in that realm of it. But at any point it could have stopped. Could that contract be changed? Absolutely. And I think that's the difference, is like from the situation that you gave, it sound like that contract was like kind of like set in stone in a way that the
contracts are set in stone.
No, because if you put certain verbiages in there, contracts is all based on verbiage. So the verbiage that we had was that at any point, if something was not in agreement, that it could be restructured. So it doesn't have to be set in stone unless you're putting in there that this is set in stone. This is what you're 100% agreeing to. But even so, even if you have a contract with a phone company and there's something that you don't agree to, you can sever that contract as well. So there
has to be legal terms on how to end that, and a lot of BDSM
sure.
groups have never written that. And
sure.
to end a contract, if it is a contract. So we're using the word contract, which is a legal document. The minute it stops being a legal document, the word is wrong. We're using the wrong word. That is just it. To be a legal document, you can't simply change it. It has to be amended or actually filed to end unless the thing has a date. Now, if you have a kill date, that's completely different. Like I have a contract with a comic book company, Scout, for my Cat Dad and Supermom project, which is about to end on its own because I'm not going to re-sign a new contract. So everything, including publishing rights, reverts back to me. And in that contract, there were terms, and it wasn't just easy to break and just decide, even though they did violate, true story, many of the things they were supposed to do on their end, unless I go to court to spend the time or they grant me a release, that contract stayed legal, even if they violated things.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem with contracts is everyone's like, oh, well, the way we're writing this, well, first off, it can't be a contract. Like even a FinDom can't make a contract because what they're doing is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
but I see, and that's the thing that where I've heard contracts being around is around FinDoming because they have to agree to something that they're getting the money from them. And is from the profession, what they're calling.
Go ahead. Are you there?
He was up there saying that he provides the services, he gets paid for it, and he has said that he does get contracts signed for it, for his services.
You, unless the services you're just giving someone control of your, like if they're signing contracts that are, there's a word, there is a legal term when you give someone. Like it's like an asset manager or something like that. You know, like proxy and stuff like that. You financial proxy. However, if you're giving charge cards, you actually can't do that. You can make someone a signer unless they are actually put on as a co-signer. So there's like a huge difference here. And there are things that intertwine with it that are insane, that are legal, even FinDoms. Because if FinDoms are doing it for pictures, you could do a contract, grant it. They would have to give a certain amount of pictures, but they would also be now listed as an employee or a freelancer. So there's a lot with real law, like, because I went to the Bar Association in New York City and I got taught about contracts just a little bit too. And I realized like punctuation matters, anything you spell wrong.
Absolutely. Because legally, exactly, in punctuation and apostrophes, even like semicolons, because that is, it could be like an inclusive or an exclusive language, depending on how it is actually structured in the sentence. So to your point too, on that as well, is that you also can introduce things like statutes of limitations in a sense. And that's what we had with, I guess, what Sage is identifying as a treaty. That's what we had, statutes of limitations, meaning that if, like, an example being is, because I was also being trained. So if there was like something that we agreed on being trained, if there was like after the first session, we talked about it was light. You know, we talked about it's like, was everything good? Yes, it was good. It was enjoyable. Okay, so the second training, we're going to start off light and we're going to build up off of that and then stop. Was that good? Yeah, that was good. But some of this was this. Okay, we'll tweak it around and we might stay at that middle level until like, it's like, oh, that's comfortable. And then it's like, okay, so now are you comfortable increasing? Yes, we'll increase. Well, I didn't like the increase, you know? So then that statute of limitation was, once it was like, I didn't like the increase of something, I had the decision of like, I don't want that ever again, or keep it at light.
Let me ask you this. Does that honestly sound like a contract the way that you have been taught what a contract is? Just take everything out of it. Look at it from the outside point of view. Does any of that sound like a contract?
I think with what Sage is saying, I think it's more of like a kink treaty.
Yes,
is what it's.
Well, we created that this week. So, but I'm asking, does any of that, like from the legal training you've gotten, does any of that ever sound like a contract to you?
Because it was fluid, you know, and there was nothing that was recorded nothing recorded with the county, or nothing that was recorded or signed with a legal team, you know. So really it was just like a piece of paper. It was an agreement between the two of us, but in the way it was structured, and that was how it was structured. And that's the thing, like you said, it has to be. Now, if there's something verbiage wise that's in there that then becomes legally binding, that's the stuff that you have to be careful of. But like Sage was saying before, who reads their full contract when you're signing a lease agreement? There's one little thing in there, like one little clause that then keeps you on the hook for something. Those are the things that people need to like pay attention to.
I've read the iPhone contracts and I realize how little we can do, how shitty they treat us and how little they care about us. But the bigger point here is that using the word contract, like you said, I want you to, people have gone as far as to have contracts written. They have gone as far as to say that they have like someone filing it. This is a coercive measure that this style is just drinking the Kool-Aid in. And we can talk about this. It's the fantasy of it. Some people really do enjoy the idea of, and I've asked people countless times, why call it a contract? I like how it sounds. That's been the only thing. That is the only reason to call it a contract, because I like how it sounds. So then in reverse, I'll tell you, well, while you're liking it and you're telling everyone, oh, we have this contract, we're a great couple, and maybe you are the best couple ever, because every contract's never ended badly in BDSM. There are some people who absolutely love each other, heard about a contract, thought it was a good idea, now use it, go out and tell everyone. So then when they tell that new person in the community how good their contract is, and that predator who's now circling that new person in the community that no one knows is a predator yet, has that young person sign a contract, or new person, doesn't even have to be young, sign that contract, convince them that this is now legally binding, they're going to have pause when they want to challenge things. They're going to feel they have to go for the ride when those things are challenged. That's on purpose. Sage shared with us that just recently that you had experienced someone having a contract thrown against them, didn't you, Sage?
I had, it wasn't recently, but recently, all things considered, it was like 2 years ago. So roughly after I had first gotten within the community. But no, I had somebody who they literally tried to, and this is the big thing that people forget about contracts, because the legal definition of a contract, I'm not going to go into like the exact verbiage, but the rough legal definition of a contract is a document meant to protect someone financially, physically, emotionally, or there is clauses that might say spiritually, and to maintain a legal agreement. Legal being the big word there. So anybody who's ever like looked up how contracts work, the moment that a contract is protecting something that is classified as not legal or illegal, it becomes void. That's why individuals like certain celebrities who've done certain things could have people that they signed quote unquote contracts with still testify against them in court, because once a contract is covering up or protecting something that's deemed not legal, it is void and it no longer exists. It doesn't work. It's like it never happened. What we do as a community, by all technicality, as safe as we all try to be, as much as we all try to be a very, very supportive and loving community where, knock on wood, hope to God no one gets hurt, what we do by legal definition is technically not a legal thing. Therefore, anything we do or any dynamics we maintain cannot be protected or controlled by a contract. It is not legally binding. It cannot be legally binding. So what ends up happening is when somebody uses the term contract, newcomers, in this case, my friend, whose name I will not name because it's not my story necessarily to tell in detail, but a friend of mine heard the verbiage contract and assumed that that piece of paper was legally binding and that she had to do what it said. Well, when she got really uncomfortable at one point, and at one point very physically and emotionally scared and backed out, when the person that had written that contract told her they were going to take legal action against her and sue her for everything she was worth, she panicked.
And they tried to. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
They tried taking her to court. They tried suing her for everything she was worth. They spent 5 minutes on the courtroom floor before the judge laughed in the dude's face and told him, "You are an idiot. That's not how contracts work."
Well, it's basically you're saying you're a slave. Like we don't have that. Like that's not. You can't legally obligate or own somebody to the point saying that if you don't do this, I will take everything that you're worth. Like that's crazy.
Exactly. So that's
That's
exactly
scary.
the main thing we're talking about here is about verbiage, about the words we use,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the words that people use that become manipulative and coercive.
Exactly.
If I was to hear the word contract, I would assume legally binding, I can't walk out. If I hear something like treaty or even written agreement, I
Mm-hmm.
assume, okay, there's room for amendment, there's room for
Mm-hmm.
change, there's space for me to back away, and there's no real repercussions if I choose to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's exactly the whole point. But you have people like, well, I like contracts. So the question is, do you like them so much that you're willing to keep talking about having a contract and have someone you actually care about?
Unfortunately, there's people that, and this is the thing too, like, a lot of this, like, and this is going back on previous conversations that we've had, BDSM is not inherently, can we say certain words here, or are we restricted?
Same thing on TikTok. Once the TikTok ends, we'll actually have more freedom on YouTube.
Okay, so we're on TikTok right now.
You can say sexual. That's how I show.
Okay. We all agree that BDSM is not inherently sexual. But there's also that where a lot of people do think that it is, and they just want to be owned in that kind of frame. And that's where that fantasy comes into play, and that's also it because it's a fantasy. A lot of this stuff gets like watered down, and why, like Sage was saying, the importance and relevance of having verbiages. Why is it important to keep saying the same things consistently? Because there has to be those pillars that are placed in the place, because that doesn't only protect the bottom of the top, or the sub and the dom, or the master of the slave, or whatever dynamic play that you're playing, but it's protecting the community, and it's protecting everybody else that's around, if it's in like a public setting or in a private party setting. So it's important to have that. And it's also important that if you are talking to people within the community and they are not using these certain things, or they're not behaving this way, cut them out. Cut them out. Don't even like talk to them. That's what I've done. And I don't care how prominent they are with other people and whatever. I don't agree with it. I don't have to say about it, but I'm going to step away from it, and not participate with them whatsoever. And if I see that they're hosting something, I'm like, that's thank you, but no thank you kind of situation.
Absolutely.
And we're always going to go back to the fact that this is when you let fantasy become like, we all look, some of us have 24 dynamics. We've worked it out. Yeah, it's very real to us. But in the end of the day, consent's got to come first. And contracts rob people of consent. And it's a huge problem. And we want to make sure that consent is always first. And consent can't always come first in a contract. You could write it that I have to have consent, but what does consent mean if you don't define what consent means? Oh, they gave me all control. I now have control of their consent. See how much not enthusiastic. Someone said enthusiastic over on TikTok. We're gonna. This is another bad penny that comes up. Enthusiastic consent sounds great on a bumper sticker and probably works well in the vanilla space. Don't get me wrong. Enthusiastic probably works really well in the enthusiastic space. We're in a lifestyle where we're negotiating things. If you're negotiating a very thoroughly, like you should, the dangers, the risks, all of that, the play profiles, the aftercare needs, and you're about to engage in a dangerous scene. I don't know if you want someone being like, "Oh my God, let's do it," because that could look like frenzy. And frenzy is dangerous in this lifestyle. What is frenzy? Great question. Frenzy is when someone wants something so badly that they're not looking at the risks involved. They're just so into it that they forgot, hey, we can't do it this way. And on top of that, who amongst us can understand what enthusiasm looks like in every human being? Because frenzy certainly looked like it looked like that. In our lifestyle, we don't have time for enthusiastic. What we need is informed, consent. That is it. There is no enthusiastic, there's no clappy, there's no happy hands. There is informed, consent. If someone consents, and you do that without coercion, you do that without threats. You don't say something to someone, well, if you won't do this, I can't play with you. That is coercion. You've just ruined consent. Consent has to come from someone that has been informed, told what is going to go on, and then agree to exactly what's going to go on in terms and how big a person has latitude to do the things they want to do. I agree. I guess enthusiastic means not letting a sub say whatever you want without thinking, but that's not consent either. If I ask someone to consent and they say whatever you want, my first answer is going to be like, no, I need to know you're okay. And credit to Alice, who came up with this recently. I'm going to add to this how I teach it. Alice has said that from now on, or in their practice, they make the submissive repeat back to them all of the risks.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Alice saying
but that's how I've always done my agreements when I have, you know, vetted a partner. That's how it's always been and how it should be.
Let me wrap this up with this person, though. I do want to add to my part of that. The other part I always do when I ask consent. Nowadays, especially since starting this channel, do you feel coerced in anything? Did I say anything that made you think you have to do any of this? I say that to my partner of over 2 years now, my masochist. I asked, you do realize you can say no, and I won't have an emotional response in any way. We could do other things, and I'd be thrilled just to be able to play with you. See, that's what we need. Enthusiasm's like, let's go get French fries. Yay! I don't want enthusiasm. I want someone to look at me and be like, yeah, hurt me. You know, clearly. Yes, consent, hurt me. Bring it on. I don't want someone to be like, oh my God, hurt me, give it to me. Like that. No, thank you.
Jesus.
No, I don't want you to be fiending. And then I agree, informed does sound a lot better. And a lot of this is you guys, and you guys can answer me on this. You're hearing this from teachers on TikTok, aren't you? This is why I said what people teach is so hard, because now we have to unteach people why enthusiastic's bad. Because why does this is a great seller? Enthusiastic. Be happy. I want someone to be happy to play with me. Here comes Rob, the gray cloud, to rain on the parade. But by the time I'm done raining, I'm really washing off all the nonsense that you do. I'm washing off all the dangerous stuff to make you safe, because safe, sane, consensual. The first acronym I ever learned, the one I will use to the day I die, no matter how much it might offend people sometimes, it's a good acronym. And it's you putting energy into words that don't need it. Safe, we can do it. Let me tell you, if we weren't doing it safe, we wouldn't be having this talk today, because no one would be doing BDSM outside of people like in the sewers. So
in the sewers.
Safe as possible, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what we are. We're lizard people, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, that's how they roll. You know, safe is all about doing with care. If you look at, especially during the time this came up, I want you to understand context matters. Safe, sane, and consensual was made back in 1980s, and it was based off a package of fireworks. They meant to do with caution, with care. That is what sane means in that. And consent, if you're here to argue about consent, please leave my channel. We will not be arguing about consent ever. Like I wouldn't even take
That's a non-negotiable.
Absolutely.
I will delete your comment and block you. If you ever say, well, do you need consent? Then you're done. You're done. You're cooked. That's it. Today was your first and last day. Let me see. There was something else here. I don't know if I need to do this, but I'm 34. Yeah, you have to do it at any age. Consent needs to be done at any age. Let me tell you, every time you're kissing someone without consent, you're violating someone. Even if they go along with it and decide it was okay, there was a moment you violated their personal space, that you are breaking a law actively. Yes, you can be prosecuted for kissing someone without consent. You could wind up being put on a sex offenders list if they find out that you do this to many people. We have this horrible tendency to look at something in this very small way. Well, contracts work for me in my little circle until they don't, and then later you go online and talk about everyone who didn't warn you. But let's say you're a lucky person who finds a person who's an amazing human being. You guys make a contract that works wonderfully. You tell your friend again about how great it is. This is so great. This was really an awesome thing. And that person then goes out, signs a contract with the wrong person, and winds up getting abused and sent to a hospital. You still going to be contracts, or are you going to be ready to listen to other people? Everyone's been saying this week, I act like I know better. In this case, it's not that I know better. It's that I paid attention to other people besides myself. I could tell you right now, I could make a contract. I've done it for comics. With my partner, I could call it a contract, and my partner would be completely safe because I live for consent. I will never kiss a human being. I don't even really like touching human beings. I wear a free hugs and spend shirt. See it on the back there. And I ask every person who asks me for a hug, is it okay if I hug you? Even if they ask me first, because I did not get consent yet. I have to get consent. So we have to stop doing this like, well, I'm too old to worry about consent until something really bad happens. And then, oh boy, does it matter.
And if it's okay if I could just kind of bump off with what you said, because it is, unless you've got something else that you want to add.
No, that rant over, off the soapbox.
And I think that's really, really important what you outlined. Now, people are going to say, well, marriage, right? Marriage is a contract, okay? But this is to what Mr. Rob is saying. You could be married to the love of your life, have known that person for 20 plus years, have children and a life and a house and all that together. That's all legally binding. But that doesn't mean, like, if there's like a sexual act that's happening that is not warranted by one of the other participants, that now becomes a domestic situation. It used to be with marriages in this country and around the world, and there's still parts in around the world with arranged marriages and stuff like that. That's very like still violates human rights, and we recognize that. But you're also talking about in the United States, not that long ago, like less than 100 years ago, that they were still having arranged marriages within the upper class and stuff like that to keep certain wealth dispersed in certain societal areas. But there was also requirements that, these were little girls, some of them. They were barely 18 that were being married at that time. That's why now we have statute limits, the ages saying what age you can and can't get married. Before, they didn't have that. So they had the moment that they were ready to have kids, that they were off to get married, and they were optimizing that time as young, healthy, to give birth to young, healthy kids as well. And that, you got to take into consideration the whole stipulation of what that marriage contract meant at one time in this country. That meant that a man could beat his wife at any point that he chose.
Well, I don't want to, just be careful of the wording. You're kind of into like a place where on TikTok, it doesn't understand fully your context, the words you're using. You know what I mean?
Sure. That they could I say that they could do at leisure. Let's put it this way. At leisure, the man could do at leisure what he wanted to do with his wife. And that could be from anything from one end to the other end. And this is where kind of like where we're tying back into another conversation that was kind of a hot topic with trad wives, because there was a very specific area and time in this country where that was a thing, and now that's being brought back in a different context. But if you look at the history of that as well, that's kind of like where it's like, okay, but what exactly is it that you're agreeing to? Just because you're dressing up like a pinup woman, you're dressing up in that era, or you're identifying that as an era, you're identifying with something that is at one time was a structure in our country. But if you look at the full history of it, at that time, a woman wasn't allowed to own a bank account, wasn't allowed to get an education, wasn't allowed to work.
But
so
also,
these,
you're equating a lot of politics into what I think a lot of people don't think about with the 1950s style.
That's not politics. That's how it was. That's how it was in our country.
But I don't think many people are considering that with the 1950s lifestyle, because for as many people who might not have liked it and hated it for good reason, there were people who enjoy that. There's still women who want to create the family, and we keep kind of making this place where we don't give them room. Everything you want is wrong. You can't be a stay-at-home mom. You can't have your husband make all the money and you just take care of the household. You can't let him be the master of the household. we're getting into a place where feminism wasn't about telling someone who to be. It was about making the room for someone to be anything they wanted to be. And I think while the laws were horrible and we have changed them, I didn't see a lot of trad wives asking for that to be reversed. They just wanted a
No,
dominant.
but that's the implication that is, and that's why it's a hot topic.
But that's us putting it in there. When you actually talk to the trad wives a lot of times, because I got tagged in so many videos, you'd be amazed. A lot of them said, I just don't want to be in charge. And then if you're saying that, how many 24/7 relationships are we throwing away because of laws that have since been changed?
Mm-hmm.
I have one trad wife say to take away anyone else's right to choose, but I've seen a lot of other women tell trad wives they can't choose that. So we have to be very mindful because this does attack at our society. I'm happy that all those things changed. I love that women have all the rights they do today, and I would stand against anyone who wanted to strip a single right away from anyone at this point. And I've already protested with the content I put out. We've gotten in trouble, but we have to be very careful in equating things that they're not associating with. Now, if you hear someone say, as a trad wife, I don't think any woman should have a right to go to work, you would have 100%. But honestly, have you heard any trad wife say that?
No, and that, I'm not putting it in that context. My context was my context was that there was a time not so long in our country that's where that was. I'm not saying with trad wives exactly. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is in reference to marriages, and that is a legal binding country, what contract, what that actually meant in this country, that's the context of it. So marriage is a contract. The context of it was that within 100 years, we did have arranged marriages with young women, and that in the 50s and 60s, that what that meant for women in this country. That's the context of it. That's not saying with the trad wives. What I'm saying is that what is the implications that when people identify as a trad wife, that they get accused saying that they're going backwards because that's what people apply it to.
But we're applying it to it right now in the show then.
I think I'm using the example that in our country, we can't avoid what our country's history is. No. At one point in our country, that is how women were treated.
Absolutely, and worse. And we could talk about how horrible the thing is, but that's not the topic today.
The topic is being in the contracts, the marriage contract sense. So we're talking about contracts, legally binding contracts with, and here we're with the side conversations that we've had previously. I'm just looping in the conversations that we've had previously, where I just identified that one of the other hot topics was with trad wives. That's what I'm saying, just to clarify.
But what I think what you're missing, what I'm saying, is that today none of that is in place, correct?
No, absolutely not. No.
We're bringing up something that is no longer active and applying it to trad wives, which is what the trad wife argument was the whole time, is that people were throwing things onto them. Yes, everything you said is right. I don't disagree with it. But the laws, and as a matter of fact, not in all 50 states is actually a wedding certificate considered a contract. In many states, it's actually just considered an agreement, because a contract needs more. Some of them do call it a contract, you're right. You have to go from state to state. Like in Florida, marriage is not a contract. In New York, it's not a contract. And I only know that because I got divorced in Florida and I got married in New York. There's marriage certificates, there's licenses, there's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's a legal document. And it's very hard to get.
It's a legal document. So now it's not a contract like it was so much before, but if you go apply for a marriage license or a certificate or something like that, depending what it is in the state, you will see that there's certain requirements that you have to meet as well.
And historically, just for the record, there was never actually a law that a woman couldn't own a bank account. They just wouldn't give them a bank account. It was worse. They had to make a law to protect women so women could open a bank account. So this was where government forced businesses to do it. So you're absolutely right. A lot changed, but this is what we forget when we're doing this. And I see this a lot. And and the reason I get so particular about this is I know you're also saying things that can go against 24/7 dynamics. People were shitty. People are still shitty. We have a lot of shitty to still wade through, but we can't always say, well, they're wrong because this and this and this happened. And it's like the contract thing too. Is a trad wife something that is dangerous to our society? is its purpose to roll back rights of women. The minute a trad wife becomes that, I'm 100% with you. But if someone says, I want the 1950s lifestyle because I grew up with a really great dad and a really great mom, I grew up with that, and it was a lovely time for me, the way that they acted as a team. And it's that perspective of it. Yeah, they're shitty fucking people. But when they're taking, I think what they're doing is trying to take the best of an era and move it forward. Everyone's like, oh, well, you must like just being abused. And it's like, no.
That's what other people will imply. That's not what I'm saying. That's what I view. I actually defend trad wives. And that's where you and I bumped heads, where it's like, okay, I understand in that context, in the trad wives context, where there is passive implied consent because they are married. There are going to be passive and implied things because you're building a livelihood together. You may have children involved. There's going to be a lot of things that are implied with that. That there's a lot of things passively, like you said before, kissing somebody that could be a consent violation. Well, maybe in a marriage that's not a consent violation because they just very much are that loving type of couple. At the end of the day, like really, it's the psychology behind it. And that's why you have to make sure that everybody is in a safe and sane environment. Because to your point, if you have somebody that might have some mental disorders that might impact that, and say they're having an episode, right? Would that be the time to then go like try to love on your partner? That might be the time not to, because they are vulnerable. You don't know how much of a consent you're going to be able to get out of them. But at the same token, are you just going to let them just like sob on the floor, or are you going to go up there and you're going to hug them and hold them? That's not a consent violation.
No, but they should be asking all those things and talking about it. Understand, I wrote the vanilla base. I think the vanilla people need to learn from our lifestyle how to negotiate, how to communicate. I think vanilla people do horribly. I'm the other side of it. I think that vanilla people scare me because they don't ask the heavier questions, because they try to do things to each other without having bigger conversations. And I think we spend too much time looking in on everyone else's relationship, pointing fingers and judging, instead of talking about the framework. What should it look like? How do we get consent? Why don't we do enthusiastic? If you notice, that's what I do. Is there shit from the past? Yeah. Have we fixed some of it? Yeah. Is there still stuff we have to fix? Yeah. But we also have to listen to the person. And that's where it becomes so important. If someone says, I want someone to be in control of me, what's wrong with that in the kinky space? That's why all the kink community really stayed silent on this. Everyone tried to make it like we were mad, but we weren't. We were like, what are you talking about, bro? That's exactly what we do. And we also forgot that during that whole trad wife thing, kink is not gender. Kink allows different people to have different roles. It has never been only this can be this. And we don't represent that a lot. And that's why a lot of people stayed out of the trad wife. Sage, you wanted to say something?
I just kind of wanted to bounce off what both of you had said, both sides of this conversation a little bit. So, and I think the big thing that people are missing in this discussion of kink community and trad wives and how because I agree with Rob that there are people, myself included, who like the 1950s dynamic. And I also believe that it's completely fine for another person to go, hey, to me, that feels kind of setbackish, and I don't know how I feel about that. That's valid, and that's fine. That's the point of feminism in this context, is the right to choose that life if that's what you want. Mm-hmm. And from everything I'm hearing, Debbie, it sounds like you very much agree with that statement. Yeah. So, because like everything that you said, I don't take any of that as like an attack on anybody at all. That's just a person expressing their opinion, and that's absolutely valid of you. I do think that what we need to remember is it becomes problematic when we stop treating people like people. 1950s dynamics were problematic in the 1950s because women were not treated as people.
Yeah, that was the crux of my point.
Absolutely, and I 100% agree with that. And that again pulls us back into our original topic of the contracts, because if we're looking at contracts, even in a marriage sense, At the time, marriage contracts were problematic because it made oftentimes the female counterpart in the marriage not a person, not treated as a person, not treated as an individual. They became a wife and that was it. In the context at which people are treating contracts, which again aren't legally binding in the kink community and therefore can't actually exist within the kink community, the submissive is no longer treated as a person. They are actually treated as an object in actuality, and that's dangerous and unsafe. So the point I want to say to everybody here is, if modern day in a marriage, which is a legally binding contract, which does have legal precedent, if you still have to treat your marriage counterpart as a person, you cannot try to make a kinky contract and not treat your partner as a person. You have to, then again, they're not even legally binding. If a contract that is legally binding can't allow you to treat somebody like they're not a person, a contract that is absolutely not legally binding in any sense absolutely cannot allow you to do that. And that's why we need to ex-nay them, because people hear contract and they think legally binding, and then it all just keeps coming back full circle.
All right.
And to your point too, Sage, like within the, sorry, I wasn't watching you.
We're running out of time on TikTok. Let me do a quick round and we can get back to it. For those watching, you guys can join us on the YouTube. We'll continue the conversation. That one hasn't even reached an hour yet, but we'll go beyond an hour. YouTube doesn't care like TikTok does. So I'm going to quickly just run through a few comments just to answer questions, because I know people had questions. Let me get this. Someone said Doms don't have an emotional response to no help so much. Doms need to know everything's a no until someone says yes. It's that simple. Pain and Pleasure said, or they make themselves something is okay, but feel they don't want to do. That's individual. I mean, if someone's asking you for consent and they've done everything they're supposed to do and they're just saying okay, that can't be held against the Dom. I'm sorry, that becomes the submissive agreeing to do it. That's what consent is. I don't want to sign the agreement to my iPhone, but I have to if I want an iPhone. But we should never have to do something in kink. But you get what I'm saying. We can't play without consent was the point. I use D&D and R&D dropped dynamic, resume dynamic type of dialogue. It's like porch time. I'm only trying to answer the questions at this point. Can you explain the difference between SSC and RAC? SSC is safe, sane, consensual. RAC is risk-aware, consensual kink. Basically, RAC is SSC, but you have to be able to identify what the risks are before you play with it. But really how it is often used poorly, and it's not against RAC, is people will actually make it so, well, the submissive didn't know what was wrong, all the risks, so it's their fault that this happened. And I've seen that a lot, but that's a topic for another day. I know a few women who do the 1950s things and their husbands, with their husbands as a kink. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing, it's been done for decades now. For decades. Communication is 1000%. And I wish I had known half of what I do now thanks to kink when I got married. Yep. So we're going to end our program here. I'm going to thank you all for being part of it. You can join us over on YouTube. This will be an evergreen video. I have to cut this off now. Remember, my friends, that consent is not a gift. It is earned through communication, negotiation, and only when informed consent is given. So YouTube's Kink Educator, for those asking. It is on Kink Educator on YouTube. And only then, when informed consent is achieved, can submission be given, and dominance, of course, is gift. Thank you for tuning in. Tell us if you like the show. If you're watching this after the facts, we will upload this as a standalone video here on TikTok. Thanks for coming out. Stay kinky, my friends. All right, so back to it. We're free. Some people might be coming in. Normally, I would have actually gone to YouTube, to the other free hugs and spanks on TikTok, but I can't find the other phone. But go ahead. Who wants to pick up where we were? We were talking about 1950s. Silence.
Oops, I was muted. My bad. I believe Debbie had a point that they were going to make, like bouncing off something I had said.
Yeah, bouncing off with what you had said with your last comment there. I will say, like, at least in my community, Most of it is like, it is married men that are playing solo. They're not bringing their spouse. And specifically because they have a spouse that, doesn't agree to it, doesn't want to partake, or that they're like, no, that's something that is, something archaic, basically.
No, I absolutely understand where you're coming from. And that's kind of how it was for a little bit when I first got into the community at 18. Because I had spent the 3 years previous for that, because I started studying kink and dynamics at 15. Avoided, really interacting with the community, like person to person, for obvious reasons. But when I turned 18, I jumped straight into like actually being a part of the community. So going to clubs, meeting people, talking to people, having those face-to-face interactions. And that's kind of how it was when I first started at 18, was a lot of the people that I was finding that wanted to interact with me specifically were the older individuals in the community. And by older, I mean, the 50, 60-year-old men who are in it specifically because, they like the taboo of it, if that makes sense. Which, not great, kind of scary, honestly. Like a little frightening. I mean, to each their own. I'm not gonna yuck nobody's yum, but that's not my thing. But again, like I had said, I talk a lot about, the dangers that young people are presented with in the community. And that is one of them, is having older people within the community approach younger individuals because they know that they don't know as much. And they like to plant those bad seeds of, well, this is what you have to do. And, I'll teach you. And it's so oddly uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then, like, as far as age play, like, then what is your view on that?
It's one of those things where now, of course, we talk a lot about how kink is not inherently sexual. For now, key thing, inherently, for me, kink does tend to be a sexual thing for me personally. I absolutely understand and respect that for a lot of people it is not, and that is absolutely fine. I am not into age play in that sense, personally, but everybody's got their thing. And, I have no problem with people doing what they want to do. I'm a firm believer that as long as everything that's going down is between consenting adults, it's not my business. I don't see any issue with it. I don't see anything morally wrong with it. Like, because it's one of the few things, Rob and I have talked about this before, it's one of the few kinks that there is no legal precedent that could make it illegal. There's no argument someone could make that would make it illegal, because these are two consenting adults doing what they want to do. Nobody's being physically harmed in any way. There's nothing going on that could be life-threatening. I think the important thing that we have to remember as a community is that, and I will acknowledge that, and I understand people, like, I don't understand, like, berating people who are into it. I understand some people, especially, like, newer people in the community or, like, people outside of the community going, well, that seems kind of weird, or, like, that feels awful uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, like, I see the connections that you're making between it, and that's absolutely understandable. But
no, I'm not making any connection. No, I'm sorry. I'm not. When I'm asked questions, I'm never like, and I would never do a setup to put things in people's mouths or anything like that. To me, it's a genuine conversation. Like, we all have our different opinions and experiences. For me, it's more like the community of it.
I didn't think that you were trying to play that in any kind of way. That was more of a statement for the folks listening. Like, I'm sure. Don't worry. No, I didn't think that was like you were trying to like set up anything negative. No, you're fine. It's all good. We've had this conversation on this channel before, so that was kind of just me going through the general like roundabout statement that I give around it, because I always make that point of like, I understand how people outside of the community might look at it a certain way and get a little uncomfy for a second, but that could apply to a whole gamut of things that we do within this community. There are a lot of things that people are interested in, people participate in, that to outsiders outside of the community might feel weird or strange or uncomfortable, but then it's all about learning. It's all about talking about it. It's all about being willing to have a conversation before jumping to judge somebody.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that there's also that there could be like a societal kind of frowning on it, like say a 21-year-old dating a 42-year-old, and that they might say, oh, well, psychologically speaking, like a 21, what would a 42-year-old person, no matter what the gender is, what does a 42-year-old person have to have in common with a 21-year-old other than to like potentially know.
I know what you mean, and I absolutely understand, and I do think that it's more of a societal thing, which drives me nuts when I think about it, because on one hand, society like gets super mad at it and is like, oh, well, why is there such an intense age gap? But then there's the other half of society that almost expects the older person, in this context of how we're talking about it, I would say an older man to be with a younger woman. And people are like there's such it's, how do I put this? On one hand, society rips on it and is like so mean about it and like will bully people off the internet and out of spaces over it. But at the same time, that same exact dynamic and situation, not even in a kink way, is fetishized in an uncomfortable and unsafe way. And
I kind of like in a Lolita form, you mean?
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It's one of those things, like, I have nothing against it personally, because I've been in relationships with larger age gaps. And I think I think that particular situation comes down to a person by person basis and being able to understand why a person is in the relationship they're in, why they're in their dynamic that they're in.
I just put some things out because it is on my channel here.
Sorry.
First, age play. The big problem with it is that people put their own opinions in. Again, it is the only thing in BDSM that is 100% legal. That's right. 100% legal. There's nothing wrong with it. It has to do with a person's emotional and mental capabilities and regression, or how they're acting. Their body does not go under 18. So we want to do that. As far as the age gaps, I hear this a lot. I'll say three things about it. Number one, isn't it the younger people who are always hurting each other the most? That's the whole thing. Oh, I did when I was younger, I got cheated on, I got abused, I got this, I got that. Being attracted to someone more knowledgeable, that be a bad thing. You're still attracted to a human being. And I think when we equate it to like Lolita, that was an underage person and unfair. And what would the people talk about with age gaps?
Just to clarify, Rob, in psychology, they actually call it the Lolita effect. So it's not saying that is somebody that's particularly underage, even though the book and the movie was what they call is the Lolita effect, meaning that there is the age difference and like the opening of like the manipulation of it because of the age gap like that. That's what they talk about. That's what I was referring to. Yeah.
But that's also been proven as also wrong, is there are healthy relationships. What would they talk about? Well, let's see, 40 years difference. Like, think about it, 20 years. Someone's seen something from 20 years that this other person never experienced. And the younger person can talk to the older person about all the things that are currently happening. The older person.
Yeah, but I think I hear what you're saying, but also we're talking about risks assessment and stuff like that. Then yes, there is risks that are attached to that as well with the age difference because of the difference of life experiences. It's something that should be talked about in that context as well, because, a younger person can be more easily manipulated. I'm not saying that specifically is the setup and that's what it is, but it does open them up to, just like we're talking about any other type of play or any kind of interaction, there has to be assessed a certain level of risk that is, because there could be, it can prominently be there. I can also say that from experience as somebody that has categorically dated other men, I have been manipulated, and that.
But women have manipulated men.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. It's not gender specific. If you heard me before, it's not without applying a gender.
What I think is the better thing to say is that all humans can be manipulative. All people People need to have conversations. We shouldn't teach that one thing is wrong. See, when we get into, that's one thing I don't like in my channel is the judgment. Because I don't know who it is. Because I could tell you at 18, I had done more than most 30, 40-year-olds had done as far as, I was already a manager at 18. Everyone's life is different. Did you get to be brought up in a home where you got to go to an Ivy League college because your family supported you and had dinner prepared for you every night? What about the people who had to go out and make their own dinner at 18? Your mother was drunk on a sofa. So we have these ideas, even the age limit on certain things. It boggles my mind that anyone thinks this. I understand that most people don't fully develop their brain till they're 25. Turns out if you're neurodivergent, add 10 years onto that almost, because person won't be able to actually have a fully developed brain until they're 35. And then if you had trauma, well, trauma slows the brain from actually developing. So now you're talking about 40-year-olds finally having a fully developed brain because of trauma, because of a neurodivergency. So we're going to make this grand thing in judgment, because that's really what it is. If a young person and an older person can get together and make each other happy and no one's being abused, that's great. We focus too much on things to point and go, that's wrong, instead of looking deeper, instead of teaching. If on this channel I go out of my way to teach very simple things. Here we go. This is a red flag. This is a green flag. If someone is older and younger, they should have honestly a conversation about potential imbalances, including money, because a lot of times that's the hugest imbalance in the world. When someone has money, they get to treat people differently than someone who doesn't have much money. Those are conversations we should have, class conversations. And I mean class like upper class, lower class, because some of us grew up in bad neighborhoods where we literally got shot at. So we have this like idea like, oh, we have to protect the precious young people. Go to OnlyFans and tell me how much those young people need to be protected, really.
And that was something I was going to bring up too.
You know, we want to blame everyone, but we just don't want to look at the fact that the world is fucked up. People
well, you know, and to your point too, because I wanted to also bring up like social media too, and how much it does like play into like that age factor. Like I'm going to take TikTok. Are you still on TikTok?
No, we're off.
Okay. I'm going to take TikTok, for example, something that I came across the other night that actually really kind of gutted me. I was scrolling through lives. I forgot I was playing with some live settings, you know, scrolling through it. And apparently there's a button you can press where it will let you kind of like scroll through lives, but not via your FYP. And I came across a channel where it was literally a group of young kids battling each other. And I was like scrolling through, and then it's like I had to scroll back because I heard the voices, and I was like, what the heck? And I know that in order to battle, you have to be 18 plus. So what is, this is the thing too, to your point with what you're saying, then what are applications and what are social media doing in order to kind of prevent this kind of stuff to do? OnlyFans is another example, that's also problematic. And I think that's kind of those kinds of situations I feel that could potentially become bigger issues as we rely more and more on social media, especially with this bill that got passed where we got AI and ChatGPT for 10 years is going to be unregulated. Who's to say where's the limitation of that? And
it's always, it's an individual experience. We have to teach our kids. We have to teach humans standards, consent. That's why the conversation in consent is even more important nowadays. Teaching people the red flags, teaching people what a healthy relationship is. The truth is we don't have a lot of people showing what healthy relationships are anymore because everyone's pointing fingers. This is wrong. That is wrong. How would anyone like me to go into their relationship and start ripping it apart? Because I guarantee you I could find something, and that's what the internet's become, ripping people down. We have to change that mentality. We have to stay out of people's business, let people be who they're going to be, and support the people in our lives. Far too many of us ignore our friends every day and go on social media that people will never meet and pay more attention to them. Far too many of us don't check in. We don't talk to our family. We don't do the right thing. And we certainly don't negotiate and communicate the way we should. That is why kink is being given to vanilla people by therapists to teach them to how to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
It's the truth. But we have this
and to set boundaries, as well.
We have this bad negativity about all of us. This is wrong because of this. This could be bad. Everything could be bad. And then you get down to that. An older person dating a younger person, that could be really horrible, or it could be really good. What if the older person has learned a lot in their journey and now knows how to actually treat someone like they deserve to be treated? And what if the young person has had so much? You had even mentioned mental illness, and when someone gets to make the call, until someone who has mental illness has their consent taken from them by a medical professional, it is never anyone's job, partner or not, to decide when or when they cannot consent, as long as drugs are not involved. Now, of course, talk to your partner. Your partner might tell you, when I'm in this mind frame, please understand, I'm not in the right mind frame. Please don't accept consent. It is for them to tell us. Or it is also a comfort. If you feel uncomfortable with someone with mental illness and you think you couldn't tell the difference, then you shouldn't be with the person. And it's hard. Life is hard. Life does not come with instructions. We're all trying to do our best. And I think that's the ultimate thing. And that's why I hate how often we go to negativity. Well, this was this and this was that, but it's not that anymore. And that's not what we're talking about. That's why I get defensive. Let's talk about today, because we used yesterday to get to today. And we have a lot to fix today. And if we keep going so far back, we forget our problems of today, and we're trying to fix something that's already fixed. Mm-hmm. Let's say about today's problems. Trad wives aren't anyone's problem, but it became big on the internet because it was an opportunity to rip someone down.
But do you think it became a big thing on the internet because it was the day caller conversation?
No, it was something that became trendy because when they attacked a person, other people wanted an excuse to be ugly. The worst thing about humanity is how quickly we turn ugly. And I'm guilty of drinking the tea some days, being nasty. I am not putting myself above anyone in this conversation. I am just as shitty at times as you all. I say this a lot in my videos. I woke up today trying to be the best man I can be today. It is true. Every day I'm trying to be a better person than I was yesterday. And some days I fail because the world is an ugly place, but it doesn't have to be. We can change that. We want to judge everyone instead of asking them. How many people asked that trad wife, the one that started it all, what does that mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone.
Well, which one are you talking? Because there was two videos. There was one where she said that. I think the one that really set people off was the one where she said that she doesn't talk to servers, like nobody talks to her. Basically, like if somebody, like her husband handles all of that. So the example was that she doesn't talk to servers, or she doesn't talk to anybody that's in a restaurant, that her husband will order food for her. Like if she's waiting at the hostess stand, I think that's where people were like, whoa, that is crazy. I may be wrong, but I feel like that's maybe where it came from.
But still none of their fucking business. Because what she didn't say was that she was rude to anyone.
Right.
I'm assuming she just doesn't stand awkwardly at the hostess stand. She probably sat to the side. When she's by herself and someone says, do you need help? She probably nods no, just out of social grace. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I know people in DS relationships that 100% do that. So when anyone said that they're a part of this kinky lifestyle and they said, oh, that's horrible, fuck you, you're attacking us, you idiot. Mm-hmm. There are people like that. I've debated and had the conversation with my masochist. Would you like me ordering for us? Because there is a power imbalance there that you do get off on, and be assured we're getting off on this. We're enjoying it. It doesn't have to be sexual to get off on it either. We all get off on chocolate, don't we? Don't we? And I think we spend so much time, and that's what bothered me the most about the whole trad wife things. People who didn't know shit were making videos about it to be popular.
Well, then that's where the accusation came that, where it's like that it was being anti-feminist, that it was bringing, women's rights backwards, that, that there was a whole movement.
How did that one person change any right?
I don't disagree with you, but just, this is where like the verbiage and that kind of like that colossal effect like came across, came down.
We're on a channel to talk about kink, and we're talking about that. That was their point.
Yeah.
That instead of talking about our lives, because I keep telling you too, I love you, but I keep telling you, let's focus on the kink, and you keep going to the negative because it's gotten in your mind.
I'm sorry. No, I don't mean to go to the negative. I was just using as an example because, like, let's also be.
This is just
because we get judged for being in the kink community, and let's also be honest. I'm not married. I have, there's people that are married and that have kids. We have more at risk to lose if we're exposed being in the kink community, especially now, like, with what's coming on.
Which is why we have to be so careful how we talk about it. This person was attacked for what they were doing. As far as anyone could tell, they have never done anything that hurt any other human being. Their decisions to be who they are their decisions, and they're right. That should be the conversation end all. I don't advertise other people's opinions. I don't make assessments of someone else unless I see it or I'm told about it. You bring me a story about a person, I'll listen to it. I've watched videos, and I've gone back to people probably in this room and said, I won't talk about that video because that has nothing to do with us. It's clickbait, and they're trying to drag us down. And so many. Do you know how many video requests I got for the trad wife? The minute I started talking about trad wives were when they were attacking them, and I defended them. And no one came back at me for that. No one came back at me for the trad wife thing because I was dropping facts. Point out what they did to take feminism back. I'm here. Show me what they did. Show me the law that has changed since then. We should be talking about, if we're going to talk about anything, let's talk about the Republican Party trying to strip rights away from women. I'd rather have that conversation than some woman who's enjoying her life. And guess what? She did what she did to get noticed. And y'all noticed her. That's why I didn't get involved when she first did it. It's when they were attacking another young lady. I defended her more than I defended the original one. The original one was just trying to get views, and we all
you did, with all fairness, though, Rob, that you did go after Moxie a little bit, and I'm not saying like in a negative way with her video about the passive and implied,
because
and
that will hurt people. And every day, I won't apologize for pointing that out. And people sent that to me because other people were grossed out. You can't make a video as an educator saying, I know that this is problematic, but we're just going to force it through. In their own video, they said it was problematic and kept teaching it. Imagine if you're
right. But I think maybe you may have misinterpreted, because I was actually on her live when she was talking about it when that came up, because that was during the time when that video came around. So people did go to her because she is a trad wife creator, and they were asking her about it, like what, and basically they were attacking her about it. So
Moxie's
in that
trad wife?
Yes, Moxie's a trad wife.
This is new to me. I never knew that. All I talked about was consent.
She's a trad wife, and there's another creator, Pumpkin. Yeah, that's a trad wife. Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question. Should her being a trad wife change the fact that what she taught was problematic?
I think in this because again, like I was in the live when it happened, because when that other video was going viral, she was having a live, and because she's known as a trad wife, a lot of people were coming to her and asking questions. So in the live that I saw her in, a lot of people were bombarding her with the questions. So I think that that video that she made was in response to the negative response that she was getting, where she was being held responsible for it.
In her video, she says, I know this is problematic. Teaching something that is problematic. That was a choice. And when people
and I think it's open to perception.
But let me finish. We don't teach perception. She has her personal views, and I've talked with you about this. I've talked with Alice. What I teach isn't necessarily what I practice all the time, because my dynamic is 2 years in. That changes things, but I can't teach you 2 years in when I can't even get people to understand consent. And Moxie made an active choice to talk about things that this community turned its back on because they're problematic. And if you have to watch 10 other videos to understand it and participate in the live, then that's a horrible video to have on the internet, isn't it?
Yeah, well, but that was the point that I was trying to make when we were having that conversation. I said what she's saying is not inherently incorrect but she's a married person. She's been married for X amount of years. So yes, they might have where they just go up and hug each other, and they may just go up and kiss each other. The example that she made was, in the video that her husband came by and kissed her and then continued walking on. And that was an example of, yes, a passive, as a passive thing.
No, it's not passive. It's consented to. What I teach, you have to understand, go back to my fundamentals. We ask. I encourage people to sit down and fill out paperwork. I encourage people to make agreements, and now a treaty. So this is something that has been talked about, scrutinized, and consented to, and not active. It is consent. Especially implied. You understand how dangerous or assumed and implied?
Oh, I do, but it's also equally dangerous to imply and assume that she's being dangerous, because what if she has had that conversation with her husband?
She had that conversation with every single person who watched that video.
I don't know. I mean, she's a trad wife, so she's making content in a trad wife aspect, and that's why I think you were reacting to that.
Even if I'll give you, let's say this is because I'm a trad wife, I believe this, I would still say it's bad. She has 180,000 people. Percentage-wise, someone heard assumed consent is okay. Someone is now going to go assume consent because that's what she taught. So someone's going to get hurt because she brought back assumed consent. How do we know someone's going to get hurt? Because it's already happened. When you make consent watered down, it opens up, and I'm not trying to hate on Moxie.
No, it was a poor example, because my point is that it's a poor example because she is married. So there could be implied and assumed consent because you are married and you've been with each other for X amount of years. You just made that comment, like saying that you're with your masochist, you've been with 2 years. So things do naturally change and grow organically.
I don't call myself a teacher and teach my relationship.
Right.
That's what she did. She was wrong. She didn't own
it. It was a poor example. It was a poor example, 100%.
That's still wrong. I mean, wrong is wrong. See, we play these games, and I know you like her. I don't hate her, but that's not how we handle things. As an educator, I've been called out, and I've made retraction videos. And then if I thought my video was bad enough, I'll take down the original. Because it's right. Someone proved I was wrong. I proved they were wrong. They just didn't like being proven wrong publicly. That's the truth. They didn't want to learn that they could be setting someone up to go out and assume consent and someone would get hurt from it. That's the fear. I didn't care about, and I tried to be so nice about it, but at the end of the day, people need to know assumed consent is dangerous. We don't assume consent. Active, inactive, it gets cumbersome. It's the same reason we don't do enthusiastic consent, right? Consent needs to be the statement. That's all. That was my point. And it became everyone defending Moxie, realizing I never had a problem with Moxie. I had a problem with assumed consent. I had a problem with people adding adjectives to consent, as it should be, because right now, consent is simple to me. I don't know why I have to teach it so often, but I do.
Mm-hmm.
You saw today we had enthusiastic consent again. You've seen me.
I didn't see the comment over here.
Oh, it's on TikTok. But I'm saying it still comes up. It's a bad penny. And until we can get rid of those things, that's the work I have ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
My contracts are bad. To circle all the way back to our original topic. I don't have a problem with Moxie. I have a problem with what Moxie's people did and came and outed me.
Yeah, no, that was utter crap.
I do find it kind of funny that Moxie knows that happened. I know they did, but never said anything about it, despite mentioning me on her lives. I get to feel how I want to feel about that.
But do you feel that when she mentioned you on the lives, that's when you started getting the problems?
100%. New people showed up to cause problems, and you could tell they didn't want to have a debate. They were looking just to tear down. I've dealt with it before. I know how it is, and I don't blame.
Well, that community is toxic. Like, I appreciate Moxie, like as as a creator, but that whole community is toxic in the sense, because there's a whole background story that is to it, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a whole background story to it, and that's why I kind of left that community, because I was like, okay, love it, but hate that this goes on.
Yeah, they are gatekeeping and want to be the people in charge of the internet when it comes to kink. Already been there, done that. And again, I don't have anything against Moxie. I would not put it at her feet. But if anyone in my community did something like that, they wouldn't be part of my community anymore.
I don't think anyone in your community would do that, because, you know, people that kind of identify with you really do understand the concept, philosophy behind full consent.
I do
Informed.
I do have to get going, but I want to tell this story because this is the perfect way to end this. So someone in the real life community, not that this isn't real, but in like in-person community, was a fan of this channel, watched this channel constantly, and came out to my event in my area and met a person who also came out that we allowed, but I had kind of a suspicion about. But until someone does something innocent, right, we give them benefit of the doubt. But because that person who came to my live events ran into this person on an online event, one of my other ones, they came up and told me, this person said that you said they could hit on me, basically. And because they watched this channel and saw everything I said, knew it was full of shit, called him out. But that is what we're dealing with. When anyone gets even the littlest, what is it? Give them an inch, they take a mile.
Mm.
That's why we don't say assumed consent, because that's an and the fact that Moxie did not instantly realize, and in the video I referenced, said, I know this is problematic, but if we just take these extra steps, it'll be really, that's, anyone who teaches for a living knows you can't add extra steps. You need to eliminate as many steps as you can, as often as you can. Kiss, keep it simple, stupid. And when we don't, and I don't, nothing against Moxie, something against the people who added my information. Oh, sure, have every right to have that feeling. But if you're going to say you're a kink teacher and do that, yeah, there's something off about that. There's something, and it'll always be off. And I told a couple of friends, we were just talking, and they were like, yeah, that's pretty shitty. That's pretty shitty. I think what Moxie was doing, in all honesty, is Moxie got caught up in something and didn't want to admit, you know what, my wording was poor. You know what?
I think it's a popularity contest in the sense of keeping a certain level of viewership, and in order to maintain that viewership. And that's why I personally, as an advocate, I want to draw more attention to platforms like TikTok, social media in general, because it is a pay to play. And it waters down. And the thing is if you're not catering to a certain audience, like that audience is going to diminish, and then you're kind of like out of like that pay to play program. So, and I think that's a lot to do with it. I personally would like to see more conversations about that, because while social media is can be a phenomenal medium to create certain things, it's way too detrimental. TikTok for me is highly problematic.
It's all like, I do Facebook, I have problems in Facebook. I have Twitter, I have problems in Twitter. I have Reddit, I have problems in Reddit. And the problem aren't the platforms, it's the people, it's the users. Yeah. And it's what we encourage. On this channel, the users understand that I don't take certain things. And I have blocked probably 100 people. And most of those blockings had to do with how they interacted with another person. When someone attacks someone in my community on here and says something really poor to them, I delete their comment and say, one more thing you say sideways, you're not here. And typically always what I get back is like a fuck you message, and then I block them. Like, thank you for saving me the time. Rarely I'll get someone who's like, I'm so sorry, you know what, I got overheated, I got into it, I shouldn't have done that, I'm sorry. I even had a few people who went after the person who added me, and I had to pull them aside and be like, don't do that. Let me handle it. Do you follow me because you know I'm a good leader, right? Or I'm a good educator, or I'm the leader I want to be, whatever you want to call it. You're following me for that reason, right? Let me handle this. This is what I do. I don't want anyone's hands dirty with this shit, and I don't want anyone getting attacked for me. That's why, and I knew going against Moxie there'd be feelings. And someone comes after me and they bring up a good point, I bring it to you guys. How many times have you seen me alive? Like, what do you guys?
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, and you're fair. You're fair. Like, and that's why I do follow you. I 100% believe everything that you say. Will I challenge you on some things? Absolutely. But it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to learn. It's not like to challenge to be like what you're saying is wrong. It's either because I misunderstood something that was being said, or I misunderstanding something as a concept of something. It's a learning opportunity. Me being neurodivergent, which I think you can identify, I ask 1,000,001 questions, not because I'm trying to be like, conflicting, or to try to start something. It's my way of being able to gain information that I can then process.
Yep. And I do the same thing. Look, I'm wrong. I get it wrong sometimes because this is evolving. People have different opinions. I've seen what I've seen. You guys all invest in me, and you talk to me, and I learn something from the conversation. And being neurodivergent, I come off sometimes very stubborn with things, but I'm always listening, and I'm always waiting for someone to not change my mind's a bad thing, because that guy who does that, someone to enlighten me in a way that I have not yet seen. And I love that. I love hearing from everyone else. It's why I go out of my way. I'm not chasing dollars with Kink.
No, yeah.
TikTok. It's just not going to happen.
Well, that's why I come and talk to you. I don't go and talk to the other platforms, because A, you are safe. B, like the fact that you do fully understand, like, informed consent, and that you recognize that. And if there's something that is being violated, and that even within a conversation, like, you're very, very stern about that, which makes it safe, which I appreciate. That's why I feel confident talking about this type of conversations with you, because I can't have conversations like this outside of the community.
No. And it's sad. It's sad that people like Moxie are chasing popularity.
Yeah.
Themselves an educator, because those two things don't go well together. You either get to be an educator or you get to be an influencer.
Yeah. And there's something that I learned the other day, because, I told you there's some problems going on with the other online community that I'm part of. So what came up in topic is, apparently there's people that can buy viewers. So I have a feeling that she has bought a lot of that 100K.
We want to be very careful with that.
Yeah.
I don't want, because like I'll get outed tomorrow because you said that. I don't know who does what. I know what I do.
Yeah, exactly. But my point being is, like, you're following to get to 10K where you're at right now, I feel has been an organic one, just because I followed along with that. So I feel confident with that. You know what I'm saying? Where then you do come across, and this is also a thing why something like a platform like TikTok is a little bit problematic, because they are, for the FYP, they are going to push those larger content creators, and they're the first ones that are going to be seen. So when we're asking ourselves, how is it that people are getting this information? Well, TikTok's pushing that FYP based on their viewerships, or based on like how many views they have,
And I'll end the program saying this. It's not a surprise to me that 10 of the creators who are Kink creators cover the same topic all of a sudden. It's like there's a script, and sometimes I avoid that. And we go, when people send me videos, I'm at the mindset that, like, I just inform the person sending it to me, because I don't want to build anyone else's following. Or we'll just take it out of whatever the video was now and talk about it without that person being present. Because it's never important, unless I think someone is really fucking toxic, like that one dude.
Oh yeah, I don't even. Yeah, he's not even worth talking about.
You know what I mean? Like that. I said, if anyone came to my page, and people have asked, I now have that video saved.
Did he block you?
Oh yeah, on every platform. Because every time, like, he would pop up, I would just get angry and be like, "Oh my god, they're still letting you on this platform."
Oh my gosh, I think that that probably took. There was the alpha guy, which I thought was like really bad, but I think that guy took over alpha, and I was like, I can't even anymore.
He's working with people. He's working with agencies who tell people who to follow and bots and all that. It's all going to get exposed, and then people are going to be like, oh well, I know there's problematic things about everyone, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stubborn as a motherfucker, but I am listening. I'm just waiting for someone to turn the tumblers in my head to be like, that's valid. It's bad.
With the gentleman, I forgot his name, Leatherman, the one that you have a lot of stitches with. You know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
He's the Leatherman.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, he is. I started following him because I really enjoyed like your guys' conversations with the stitches and all that. I would love to see him come up as a guest.
I'm trying. We're trying. It's just scheduling right now. It's different time zones, different work schedules. But I do have to get going. It's time to feed the kiddo. Thank you all for being part of this. And remember that BDSM is not inherently sexual. It is not one size fits all. And it is mental. So there's no completely right way. But God damn if there aren't a lot of wrong ways out there that we got to talk about on this channel. So talk about your communication skills, negotiate, share all of your lists, your playlist, risk. It's not a list. Oh fuck, I'm getting it wrong. I do it too much and now I forgot. No, I think it is a risks list. Oh, well, either way, talk about your risks, talk about your medical conditions, negotiate, and consent can't come without negotiation. Thank you all. This has been a long program. I appreciate Debbie. I appreciate Sage, who had to step out. I appreciate Zenergy, who I did not get to make comments about what you said. I promise we just were into it, and I didn't find the comments, and I'm so sorry about that. But I loved all of you coming here. We'll try to see what this show has in the future, and this could be good. A nice long debate about things instead of 10-minute quick TikToks. See you all later. Thank you for showing up.